guys, my name is Thomas, a design engineer here at Deutsche Beverage. Today I'm going to spend some time walking through a new tool we have on our website. It's our Distillery Sizing Calculator to sort of help walk through pot still, hybrid still, production schedules based on your preferred spirit that you like to produce. To find the calculator, you can go to this Learn tab here, scroll down to Still Calculator. In this first page is all of the production parameters that we need to know to be able to properly size your equipment. The types of spirits, how many proof gallons or how many liters of package production are you looking to make for your new distillery. So this page here, you can see it lays out all of the different distilled products you can make. I'm going to go ahead and start entering in some basic parameters of a potential distillery. We'll make some whiskey, average proof, about 100 proof. We'll age this whiskey for 4 years because age losses can affect the total production of a distillery. We won't do any single malt. That can require some additional equipment like a lauter tun or another method, but in this case we'll just look at a regular still making like a bourbon style whiskey. For rum, maybe we'll do some rum, not quite as much as the whiskey. I still like 100 proof there. We'll probably age the rum for a little bit as well. Then we have some choices for gin. A lot of craft distillers use G&S, or grain neutral spirit these days for craft vodka and gin production, just because it's so much cheaper to get grain neutral spirit and sort of finish the product versus trying to make vodka on a pot still or a hybrid still, just with the scale of the equipment. So in this case, we'll add some gin production using grain neutral spirit. I'll add some production here. Maybe we'll go up to 120 proof on the gin. And like I said, G&S for vodka production is preferred on the craft scale. Not necessarily preferred, but common. So in this case, we will not be producing any vodka on our pot or hybrid stills. Moving down the sheet to the other inputs, we have sort of like how your work schedule looks like. We've put sort of a recommendation of 250 days for working days throughout a year for a distillery. That sort of takes into account holidays and weekends. That may differ depending on your personal work calendar and schedule, but for now, I think 250 days is a good start. And then everybody's shift schedules are different. Are you running a full production, round-the-clock type thing, or are you 8-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts? So we have this input here. I'm going to go with a 12-hour work day, 250 days out of the year. And then in distilling, there is some fermentation time to take into account. If you're familiar with brewing, that time is typically closer to 2 weeks, but in distilling you can get fermentation average time around 3 days, sometimes 5 days. 3 to 5 days is a good range to use. In this case, we're going to move forward with 3 days. Of course, that depends on your yeast and your sort of your mash bills going into your fermentation tanks. Let's go ahead and get our results here. All right, so here's our results page. Starting at the top, this is sort of a summary of all of the production numbers based on your inputs in different units. So it summed up our total whiskey, vodka, or whiskey, gin, and rum to 150,000 total liters, converts that to gallons, and then proof gallons, which of course is the correction for 60 degrees Fahrenheit at 100 proof. So that's how many proof gallons versus total package production. And then it also calculates how much we lose in our aging steps. So we're aging both the rum and the whiskey. So there's going to be natural losses from the barrel due to aging. So this is the amount of proof gallons that we actually need to make to get to that final 41. So this 47.8 minus that 6,400 is that 41,333. Here's a little, if you need a definition on a proof gallon, this goes into further detail for that. So there's our total production parameters here, and then moving down, the sheet, we have two different still types called out, a hybrid still and a pot still. Both of them can be used for multiple types of spirits to really fine-tune your product and process. It's probably good to talk to an engineer or your sales rep here at Deutsche, depending on your products. But typically, pot stills by themselves used for whiskey, rum, lower proof, higher congener type spirits. Hybrid still, you have a lot more flexibility to maybe do some gins or vodkas. You have the column with an extra 4 trays, so you can get higher purities on a one batch run. We have some more information here sort of highlighting the differences between the two stills. And of course, myself or anybody on the Deutsche team is willing to reach out and sort of discuss the differences and how your spirit production might work between these two options. This drop down here, if you are sort of have an idea of which of the options is preferred, by changing between hybrid and pot still, you'll see that our production numbers change here below. So if you have a pot still, you might be required to do more runs in order to hit your production number versus a hybrid still. So we correct for that in this total batches per workday number here. So you'll notice the calculator spit out, here's our recommended size. We're trying to keep this number close to 1 batch per workday. Of course, your personal preference on runs per day can be taken into account, but just for sort of a general recommendation, we've kept this recommendation at 1 batch per day. If we're going to move forward with a hybrid still, that gets us right at that close to 1.1 batches per workday, and right at the 500-gallon size. Now, if we wanted to play around with this size to see how it would affect our total production, you can see just by changing that to 1,000, roughly half, which makes sense, going from a 500-gallon to a 1,000-gallon still. So if you were to go with a 1,000-gallon hybrid still to meet these production numbers up here, you'd be running about half or 1 batch on your hybrid still every other day. And then going further, backing it up to fermentation. So in order to fill your, you need a total of 2 tanks to match that 1,000-gallon size to feed it. And then, of course, with fermentation, we mentioned there was a 3-day estimated fermentation time. If you end a mash batch on a Friday, right now this is a 365-day calendar, so we're counting weekends as fermentation time. That may not be what you prefer in your production schedule, which would sort of drop you down to a 250-day production calendar, which would require an increase in fermentation tanks. So it's important to take into account the calendar you plan on working. Maybe you don't want to have anybody dropping into the distillery on a Saturday or Sunday to check on the fermenting vessels. You'd rather start your ferments fresh on a Monday. So that could affect this total number here. And then working sort of backwards from fermentation to mash batches. And this is matching the same size of this 1,000-gallon, how many mash batches you will need per day. So on a 500-gallon mash cooker, you're right at 1.1, also sort of mash batches per day to keep up with fermentation and distilling. And you can play around with this number and see how that would affect your total mash batches per workday as well, which ideally we're trying to keep around 1 as well. So in this particular case, it looks like a 500-gallon still, probably some 2 or 3 500-gallon fermentation tanks, and a 500-gallon cooker would be a good starting point. This is more a reference. It's meant to get the conversation started, so we definitely recommend reaching out to your Deutsche contact to sort of talk this through and revisit your preferences on spirit production, your sort of daily work schedule. All of these things can sort of factor in to fine-tuning these numbers. I'm happy to walk you through the different still types and how that affects your overall production goals and schedule. Again, thanks, and we hope to talk to you soon.